Welcome to the Realty Trader Talk podcast. I'm Jordan Kane, sponsored by RealtyTrader.com. It's where business meets mindset. My guest today is, a really special person to me. I personally know he runs his business from Helpful Mindset. So Ken Miller from Cobblestone Pavers and Hardscapes. How's it going, my friend?
It's going great, brother.
I'm the worst at this between AA, DAA, and Anonymous, but you were my sponsor. Through being a sponsor and, all of the people you've helped through, DAA and AA, do you think any of that has transferred over into your business?
I believe that all of my work has strictly been God-based, right? And I think God has set me up in the way I'm headed. You know what I mean? Like, I can't take credit for anything I'm doing today. Like, you know what I mean? Sometimes I wake up, I could be miserable, and I make a couple phone calls to fellowship members, and, I pray, and my day just goes a different way. You know what I mean? We have a slow period. I talk to God, things turn around. I think the steps in, obviously, Alcoholics Anonymous saved my life, right? And it saved your life, and it saved millions of other people's lives. But the whole purpose of that fellowship is to get us to God, right? And without that cornerstone of what we need to walk through, I don't think any of us would be where we're at right now.
Absolutely not. You have to start there, and, it's all different stages of a journey. And I think you grow personally. You start when I got out of jail, and I, was so desperate and hit my knees, and, I had never been to the rooms, never been to AA, never knew anything about it. And by the grace of God, he put Tiffany back in my life, and she brought me to my first meeting that night, the first night I got out. I love to tell that story where I had nothing. I would Lambo feeties and didn't even have those. I had to go get shoes, a shirt, and some sweatpants because I was not in shape either. So I needed something that I could throw on. I went to this meeting, and I saw her. She was actually chairing, and I just was like, I couldn't believe that, how in depth she was in this. Like, I didn't know how it works. So I thought she was like the king of recovery and meetings. She's up at the front table. All right. But through that and going through those meetings, and then, meeting you, led me to business, and led me to God, and led me to God first. And without God, and without being able to give it to him and get through and have these tools and put this together, that's what led me into business and helped me. With you, have you seen where addicts have recovered and done business? I know you see it with me. You're a big part in my life.
So of course, I know every one of my friends owns a business, right? Whether it's they're a financial advisor, a realtor, a boat broker, whatever, they all own businesses, right? And I think the one thing that is integral to the whole situation is that they continue to help people.
Hmm.
Right? Because without giving, you're never going to get, right? And it says it everywhere, right? It says it in our book, says it in the Bible. It says, if you give, you got to get, right? You go to church, you got to tithe, right? Like, it's just the way it works. So, But yeah, man, I think alcoholics and addicts and whatever are some of the smartest and most characteristic people in the world. It's like, we just got to get out of our own way.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as we get out of our own way, doors start to open, But as long as we keep blocking that sunlight, nothing's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because we'll complicate a cardboard box.
Absolutely. In my experience, I see when I let my will take control, I break out in handcuffs and I end up. So, having God and finding God definitely put me in this place. And I look back through my journey and different things in life, and, what humbled me to get me here and what didn't. When I wasn't humble and I wasn't living right and I wasn't living for God, I thought I was running a good business, but I wasn't. My business, I was working day to day, and I was trying to just collect a check, but internally I was just a terrible person and egotistical and prideful. And I'm sure the majority of my clients didn't ever even call me again. I was able to get the job done, but is it someone who they really want to be around or do business, or felt like I was putting them first? Through recovery and doing that and humbling yourself and going through that journey, I think that's what kind of put you in that place.
When I finally let go of control and practice humility, my life changed, right? I worked dead-end jobs for my first 4 years, right? And I knew let's backtrack, right?
Okay.
Before my addiction, right? I was in the bar business. I had money coming in, like things were great, but you could lose it all when it's ego. You know what I mean? And I wasn't helping people, and I was greedy, and I was cocky and arrogant. The big man upstairs showed me that that wasn't the person I was supposed to be, you know, and he gave me about 15 years of agony.
Mm-hmm.
Coming in here and meeting people in our fellowship and them breaking down my ego and making me understand what the definition of humility was and how I could get there, right? It's allowed me to be a better businessman, right? It's allowed me to practice integrity when I'm dealing with people, right? 8 years ago, if you would have called me for a job and something went wrong, there's a good chance I'm not coming back, right? Today, no matter how much I don't want to come back, I'm coming back because my word means something to me today. You know what I mean? One thing all my customers, I think, in the last 2 years have realized that what I say is what I do, right? If I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. It may not be on your timeline, but it will get done within a decent amount of time, you know? And I think that stands out for guys like you and I, like, that are in business, right? Because you're selling a house, right? Shrubs need to be removed for curb appeal. You can't find nobody to do it. You're going to go home, throw on a pair of shorts and some sneakers and a t-shirt, and you're going to remove them, right? Because, hey, I'm your agent, and I'm going to make sure we get this house sold because that's what you need to happen today. Right. And I think that goes a long way in any business, man, is being willing to step outside the box. It's not always about the dollar. It's about the experience, you know, and I think that speaks volumes to people we deal with on a daily basis, especially in a world of scammers.
Absolutely. In today's world, there's a lot of scamming going on. Unless you've been the person who didn't show up, didn't pull the shrubs, didn't come back, didn't, you know, you cash that check and all of a sudden, you know, I'm not answering this phone call anymore. You know, you had to go through what you went through, be that person to be the man who you are today, to show up when they call, they know they're going to get that person. He's going to do what he says he's going to do. I think, you know, you're right on being a man of your word is the most important part in business. Coming from a helpful mindset and truly trying to help someone and doing what you say you're going to do are the two key pieces. In your story with addiction, you know, tell me a little bit about what you said with the nightclubs and when you were egotistical and arrogant, I think is a term you used. What led you to your path to not being arrogant?
God has a funny way of showing up, right? So in 2014, I was arrested. I was facing 7 to 25 years in prison. And at that moment, I realized, sitting in that bubble, as we call it up north, being questioned for 9 hours. At that moment, I realized something had to change, right? And I was able to bond out. My brother did 5.5 years, right? He took it on the chin. He copped out to everything. I was able to get 3 years probation, suspended sentence. And I immediately went to treatment. I jumped bond and went to treatment, right? Flew out to California, stayed out there for a few years. They found me. I had to come back in a pair. And when I showed up to court, I came with a folder this thick, right? With everything they needed to know what I was doing. And the judge granted me to go back to the West Coast from Connecticut because he's seen that I was on the right path, right? And every time I showed up, I brought a file, I brought paperwork, I brought letters, you know, and I think, you know, like when I came back, I finally had like a solid foundation of who I was and where I needed to be going, you know, and I'm not going to say I didn't mess up after that, right? I still never dealt with the trauma of my mother, you know, like that was huge in my life. Like, you know, losing your parent at 22 years old, like it'll destroy you, you know, especially to the nature I lost her. So, you know, I think God will constantly reveal himself if you're, whether you're searching for him or not, he's going to show you one way or another that you're not doing the right thing or you're doing it right.
When I was 16, I found drugs early and I thought that, you know, they made me cool. So I was 16 and I started selling weed. It's not that cool. But I remember that at 16, just like where my mind was when I got arrested and Tupac came out with this song and it was Shorty Wanna Be a Thug. So, and he's like, I would ride around. He's like, yeah, convicted 16 as a felon. And I used to think I was so cool, you know, at that age when I'm trying to find, who I am and who do I want to be. And I thought, that was going to make me tough. I was trying to be a tough guy. And my dad got brain cancer. I was working, he was going through surgery, and I was coming home. I was working at AJ's Pizza, which, later I partnered with Bill Chevry. Love you, man. He's my mentor, everything. We were sitting in AJ's Pizza. A woman came in and ordered mozzarella sticks. Now, granted, you're 16. You don't, I had no experience in that world, really. I just thought I was a cool kid with a half pound of weed, selling weed. A woman came in, bought mozzarella sticks, ate one of them, and left, and just left 4 mozzarella sticks on the table. We were talking about it the whole night.
She needed some of the weed.
But no, she came in and ordered it, and I'm in the back on the grill cooking, and, we're all talking about it. That's the weirdest thing. She came in, only ate one, and left. So after we cleaned up and at the night, I had left work, and I was driving home, and this unmarked Explorer pulls behind me. I see this light come up and go on the dashboard. So I'm like, what the hell? So I pull over like 1 block from my house, and he comes over, he pulls me out. He already knew. And I'm sitting in the back seat of this cop car in handcuffs at 16, scared to death. I mean, scared to death. And this lady comes walking by the car, the same one who ordered those mozzarella sticks. And I had this out of body experience at 16. I'm like, oh my gosh, she was in the place. I'm like, I couldn't wrap my head around what was happening. But where I'm going with this is that I was sitting in the back seat of this cop car, and here's my dad coming up. Get emotional. I don't like telling stories like this. So he comes walking up, and his head's split. He's got staples, and I'm so upset. I'm telling him, I'll go to church, and I'll take care of, I'll do whatever. I'm so sorry. And here, my father is looking at me. Just had brain surgery, his youngest son in the backseat of a cop car. And I just, again, utter devastation in my life of, what choices I've made. And, they end up taking me to Rock Road. And because, I thought I was going to go to the detention center, but because they felt sorry for me through, my dad coming up and my mom, telling them that we're going through a hardship, that my son's doing this because my family's going through a hardship. They ended up, taking me, booking me at Big Rock Road when I'm 16, again, scared to death. They pulled me in this other room. They brought me home that night, and I ended up having to go to court. But, I ended up getting probation, but my father passed away when I was on probation. And, to this day, I know he looks down and, I love you, Dad. And, sees what I am today. But seeing my dad in the backseat of that cop car with his head split, that was just a super tough thing. And why I'm telling this story is because I know you have a super tough story that you went through with your mom.
Yeah. So like in 2006, I was riding around doing hood rat things with my boys, and I got a phone call from my father, and he said, come home. Now, mind you, I was 16. I didn't live at home. I already had my own little apartment. I left home at like 15 years old. And I said, which home? Your home or my home? And he said, come home. And I heard it in his voice. And I was like, man, something's not right. So I told my friend that I was riding with, I was like, hey, go to my house. When we pull up, if there's a bunch of cop cars, you just take off. I got it, because right away in my head, I'm thinking like something's going down. Well, we got there. My stepmother, God rest her soul, she just passed away too. I had to do it twice, man. But got to the house. My stepmother came running down the stairs crying, and like she's yelling for my friend, don't leave. We're not going to be able to handle him. You're going to have to stop him. And I get upstairs, and they told me my mother was murdered, and that, like at the moment, it seemed like it was fight. There was no flight. It was like, hey, where's he at? You know what I mean? Because I was ready, and then they continued to tell me that he murdered himself. He committed suicide right after, so I didn't even get the redemption I needed, or what I...
That was a blessing. What
I thought I needed.
At that time, yeah. Right, yes.
Right. But that would have been 2 lives ruined. In 3 lives, I would have been in prison.
Right.
My mom would have been dead. He would have been dead.
And you would have never been able to save me. So, that was
I
a
didn't
gift
say
from God.
that was all God.
Right.
But that's funny though. That tore me up for a long, long time, because I was the wannabe quote unquote gangster. Like gangsters don't cry, gangsters don't do therapy, this and that. And everybody would tell me, you need to go talk to somebody. And I'm like, no, I don't.
I got this.
Yeah, I got this. And then it ate me alive, and I didn't even know it was eating me alive. You know what I mean? The way I treated people, the way I acted out, the substances I put in my body over the years, and when I finally got some real help, I was like, I needed therapy. And when I got down here, look, dude, she passed away in 2006. When I got down here in 2018, and I was in treatment at 12 Keys, was the first time in that, I don't know, whatever time frame that is, that I was able to forgive my mom's murderer. You know what I mean? I was sitting out on the dock one night, and it was windy, and it was a clear sky. The stars were out, and something came over me, and I just looked up in the sky out of nowhere. I said, Bob, I forgive you. And that was the freedom I needed. Man. When I finally did that, I ran back in the house. I'm like, hey guys, I think I just had a spiritual experience. Everybody's like, shut up. But hey, that was my experience.
That was absolutely.
And that's what set me in the right direction after that, because it's been 8 years since that day. And well, not 8 yet. That's a lie. It's coming up on 8. And I'm truly blessed. And,
wow.
No matter how hard things get, like, I look around my situation. I got a beautiful fiance, good family life.
You think, like, why do I deserve this?
Never mind the material, but I got 2 trucks in my driveway that I could pay for. You know what I mean? I got a dog. Like, these are all things that, like, I never wanted, but God knows exactly what we need and when we need it, so.
At the right time.
Right.
100%. And again, with your journey and going through it, you might not have found that spiritual moment if you didn't have those hardships you had. I know I would never rebuild my relationship with God that I have today if I didn't go to jail, fall so far. I was raised in the church, but I never had a relationship with God. It was, do this because you'll be damned. And, now my relationship with God gets me through, everything. And when you put people in your life at the right time with Tiffany, I never went to my dad's. He's buried 5 minutes from my house. I never went to it because, I'm still working on myself. And, I knew I would get emotional, and I run from emotion. And I know that now, again, through therapy. But, Tiffany, brought me there, and, I weep like a baby. But it was something that I needed. And I wouldn't have had that without God putting these people in my life and going through it and, coming. And then we went there, recently with my son. I was able to take him to his grandfather.
I get it, bro.
Then to his grandfather's grave, and it was just, special.
Mm-hmm.
So, God's good.
Absolutely. All the time.
All the time. So through those hardships, through, with you coming in, and now, you had the spiritual moment. When do you feel that you started to say, "Oh, this is it. I'm in sobriety. I'm going to be able to help people and like really tell your story and get there"?
Within 3 months.
Within 3 months.
3 months. I was the fellowship I was brought up in was very old school around this area when I got into it. Lots changed, but by the time I finished my work that I had to finish, they wanted me to sponsor other men. I think I had a hot 60 days. But I jumped right in, man. I got out of treatment. I was taking Ubers from the halfway house to the treatment center and sponsoring guys. I got real busy with it. And I worked in a call center, worst job I ever had. And I was making like $400 a week, and just paying my rent and paying for Ubers and groceries. I remember the first car I bought was a 2000 Envoy, GMC Envoy. Thing was a bucket. I had to plug the battery in every time to get it started.
Mm-hmm.
And put a fuse for the AC. But like, hey, like I was back on my feet. I had my license for the first time in, I want to say 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
I got my license back. I got a vehicle. I was able to start making moves from that point. I'll tell you what, man, like being almost 8 years sober and looking back, sometimes I wish I could go back to that first 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
because it was so carefree.
You know, it's funny. I went to actually your meeting last Thursday, and I was sitting there thinking the same thing as, you know, I'm hearing people share. All I had to do was worry about is not getting in trouble, go to a meeting, show up to my little $15 an hour job.
Where were we eating?
Right. Exactly. You know, and well, my $15 an hour job was, you know, Marine Connection. My family brought me in. I love you guys. Say thank you. You guys brought me back to God too. And, you know, when I needed you. When I got out, it was the same thing. You know, I got out. I didn't have a license. Talked to my brother. My mom was driving me to work when I went and, you know, asked you know, I call him Uncle Ronnie, but he's really a cousin. And I went and sat down with him and, you know, asked him if he would be gracious enough to give me a job. And he's like, well, you know, I love you. And, you know, I love your family, and your dad was, you know, and went in. He's like, you know, I know if you're going to steal from me. I know when things are gone. And it's like, you know, that's how that went. And he's like, but of course, you know, I'll give you a chance. So my mom, you know, was driving me in to work and then picking me up, and, you know, amazing woman she is. She, you know, always was there for me. I love my mom. She's, you know, been super supportive. Finally got a hardship license. I didn't have a license, and I had to beg my brother. And he's like, of course, he had this little 1996 Toyota truck. But I remember I could finally drive to meetings, but I had to get home. I was on probation and curfew. And at that time, that was my big problem, my big thing I need to overcome. Well, get my license and borrow a little truck and go to a meeting. And, you know, at that time, those were big hurdles. But, you know, my hurdles today are, in the grand scheme of things, are a lot different. I remember coming to you and begged you to be my sponsor, and you were super busy. You didn't really have time for me, but but you took me on. I think your word is begrudgingly, but you took me on, and we went to go. You were taking me to read a step, and we were going to go to this nice serene inlet
On the jetty.
on the jetty, right? Because I was staying at my mom's condo at the time. And you're like, well, we'll go and we'll read. And, you know, I was just out and still in, you know, that jail mindset, and, you know, I'm tough. And, you know, so we go read, and those guys at the thing, I don't really remember, but they were being disrespectful somehow. And I'm like, you think you're going to punk me in front of my sponsor? Like, this is my sponsor. So we almost, you know, I'm going to read the book, and, you know, we almost get into a altercation. You're like, Jordan, come on. And, you know, and we ended up going to.
I think I started.
You probably did.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably did. And I think that's what had happened.
Because they were drunk.
Okay.
I was like, hey, man, you don't see we're doing some God stuff here? And he was like, God's not real.
Okay. Right.
I was like, what'd you just say?
Yeah. Right. And so, okay. So, yes, they were drunk. I remember now. And yes, you did.
And then I was like, I told him, I said, hey, man, you should probably leave because it's about to get ugly for you. And then it was just.
You are correct.
Then I had to like reel it back in and pull you in. I'm like, yo, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, then we went and sat in the truck.
And read it and had a God moment, and that was a blessing. And we're here today, and there is no thing. But, you know, those are the type of hurdles you have to overcome at that time.
5 years prior, that guy would have got molly.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. You were right. I mean, even at the time, you know, I was just out. You could have caught me 6 months ago, and you'd have been hurt.
I think he threatened to call the cops on us.
Did he? Yeah. Well, then it was time to go.
Yes.
You know, I'm on probation.
Come on,
You're reading the book with me
at the time still.
Okay.
Yeah, because what, you got 3 years
You
coming up on 4?
2. Probation.
Right now.
Oh, coming up on 4.
Coming up on 4. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that would put us around. No, I had just got off.
Oh, right. Yeah, I remember. Because yes.
Yeah. So I had just got off probation. I think I was joking about it. I was like, figures. I was like, get in more trouble after just getting off paper.
Mm-hmm. So, Cobblestone Paver, how did you end up getting in there?
So I worked for a friend. I started off just doing the clean and seal stuff, and I did landscaping up north, so like I had some kind of idea of what I was doing. But yeah, I met this kid. I was working in treatment at the time, and I was miserable, man. Like just being around the sickness all the time. And he's like, "Come work for me," and I'm like, I want to work for friends, you know. I said it never works out right, and I worked for him. I was doing clean and seals, and then like they just seen how good I was with the customers, you know. Like I got. Till this day, if you look at their Google reviews, which is no longer in business, but if you look at them, like my name's plastered through it because I was just good with the customers, you know. And I climbed the ladder really quick, man. I went from doing the clean and seals to quality control to a sales guy, and it was all within like a 2-year span. And like obviously someone fell on bad times and things changed rapidly, and they sold the business, and the new owner came in and he wanted to change everything, including pay scales, and I was the first to let go because I was getting paid more than everybody. And I was like, you know what? When he fired me, I said, you just made the biggest mistake. I said, you obviously don't play chess. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, you're going to find out next week. And that night I went home and I was watching the election, and I seen the numbers going up on this side of the election. And I was like, F it. Let's do it. And I filed the articles of incorporation that night. The next day I was legally in business. And then a week later, I had everything I needed: business cards, truck logo. I started with a little 1,500, man. I was pulling like 10,000 pounds with a 1,500 with a 1/4-ton truck. I should have got arrested for it, but hey, we're here now, you know?
Okay. Right. You know, that's how business is, though, when you're starting, you know, that
Any means necessary.
yeah, absolutely. You know,
Necessary.
and you look at every business that's, you know, that they have a story like that.
Yeah. And like, you know, like you and Paul both bust my chops about not being on camera. So like even this right here is a little uncomfortable for me, right? And like this is like fear that I got to break through, because look, dude, I've been the fat kid my whole life, right? And like I don't like camera adds 20 pounds, bro.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Look, I get it, dog.
So like
Right.
you could see what me and you look like right here, but on camera we're gonna look like we just went to Burger King.
Yeah, it's the way it is, right? If you notice, I have my legs crossed because when I sit like this, it looked big, right? I had it on my last podcast I filmed. Tiffany's like, "Why don't you sit up? You see how the other one's sitting up?" Right? I totally understand. In the rooms, I always had that problem of, I mean, you would literally look at me, and I'm like, he's made me say something, I know it, and I'm like, then I'd have to talk, and I would get the worst anxiety. It is all about in business and giving back, and you know, paying it forward, or if God's given you a gift, or if you know, show somebody else. And I know in the rooms, that's that's what the whole message is. You know, if you get through it, you'll love to remind me sometimes how selfish I am in my sobriety. But you know, I hear that, and I know it's coming from a loving place, and it's, you know, and it reminds me, kind of grounds me to say, you know, don't forget where you come from, and to give back. You help a lot of people in those rooms and telling your story. And I mean, I've been in many meetings when there's 10 people there who's raised their hand on who you were either their sponsor or helped them through their journey. So camera is the next step, but you have a gift in front of the people. Me, I'm trying to utilize this because I don't have that.
My fiance tells me all the time, you're such a great speaker. I don't know why you don't do your own like podcast or start like a what do they call it, vlog, you know? But I'm great in person, right? Just like I wasn't good at phone sales, but you put me in front of a person, we're going to start talking about baseball before we even get to the sale, right? Because I want you to get to know me.
Of course, right.
And that's where this is integral, right? Like I should be doing this because the neighborhood don't know me, right? They see Cobblestone Pavers and Hardscapes, but who's behind that? Here I am.
Well, if you want to, you know, the gentleman known as this, Johnny, you know, he's a piece why Paul's, you know, getting out there, you know, Legacy Studios. It's, you know, if you reach out to him and, you know, he'll put Johnny is the reason why I'm here. Shout out to Johnny. I appreciate you.
Okay.
And
I see this stuff.
yeah, absolutely. He's, you know, I came here and I said, okay, well, you know what? I like what you're doing. Right. Help me. And, you know, he comes from the helpful mindset as well. So he's a huge asset. Cobblestone and Paul, speaking of Paul, I see you were a sponsor, you guys, about giving back to the community. You've got a beach cleanup or something coming.
Yeah, so we did one back in, I think it was September, maybe a little later than that. And we had a good turnout. Paul's doing another one. I told him I'd sponsor it, but we haven't, listen, we're both busy. So like those conversations happen quick on the phone, and then before you know it,
right,
just like you and I, right? You tell me you're going to call me back every day, and I don't hear from you for 6 months. But it's all right. I know what's going on.
Uh-huh.
And the beach cleanup, man, we had a great turnout. You know, like I want to say like 70 people showed up, a bunch of local businesses, you know, and we got out there and we're finding tires and floating wood and pipes, and you know, thank God there wasn't a lot of drug paraphernalia, because like that stuff gets dangerous, you know. But it was a good family event, man. I'm pretty sure the scale of it this time is supposed to be larger. I think there's going to be vendors. Could be a few other businesses involved that like are more scaled towards that type of industry, junk removal and stuff like that. We just have fun with it, man, you know? And like at that point, like I wouldn't get on camera. Like Paul's like, come on, man, come say something. And I'm like, nah, bro, like you got me.
You got this, right?
Yeah, you got me in a white t-shirt. You're shredded. You're going to make me, what am I? What are we doing here? You know, but yes, any community event that I could get involved with, obviously I'd volunteer. You know, that being said, like sometimes it comes down to a monetary thing, and
Of course,
I can't always volunteer.
of course.
Like I can't always just give money. You know, even like because my personal welfare has to come first, or there is no business.
Well, that's just how business is. It goes through a cycle. Sometimes you're in that place to be that person. Sometimes you're in that place to I'll show up and hand out bags and sticks. You know, it's about being just a part of it. iMind, where I go to therapy, they've started an iMind Foundation. It's a separate peace entity. They're now doing fundraising and doing events. They're doing a pickleball event that I'm going to be at. That's kind of the whole, a big part of business. When you have a network and you start finding people from a mindset who want to help, you build that network and you connect. So I'm going to be out there at the pickleball tournament. I'll have to, put it on my page when the exact time is. I've shared it on Facebook, but I had to get the details.
I want to see this mean backhand, bro.
Bro, that's why I'm bringing. I am literally telling you so you can show up. Absolutely. Pickleball's huge now. It's a big thing. Yeah.
I got a paddle.
Do you? Okay. You and the missus go out?
No.
Oh, this is your thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, I said I was going to start playing, and dude, I literally was walking through my garage the other day, and I'm like, I got 10 fishing rods. I got 6 pickleball paddles.
You got a lot of plans.
I'm like, I got all this stuff that I keep saying I'm going to do, and then I get busy. It's like, I just want to, after 10, 12 hours a day, I go to the gym at 4:30 in the morning. I go to work all day. By the time I get home, I just want to go to bed. I just want to relax with her and my dog and maybe watch a movie. And I think that's the beauty of life now. You know what I mean? It's just having peace and being serene in your own space.
Well, before I didn't have those goals. I totally align with that, and I'm the same way. If I'm up, same thing, 5 in the gym and working hard and coming home, and now I have 2 kids, and one in baseball, one in football. So some nights I'm out till 9 o'clock trying to keep everything together.
Right, that's the point.
Right. It's I'm definitely yawning at the fields, but it's that is true happiness for me and peace. Tiffany and I were blessed enough to get a boat, and last weekend we were out we had both boys, and being able to be out there with them and them jumping off the boat and swimming. I was at my absolute happiest place I've been in forever and before in my life. I would have been with, my ex-wife on the boat, on my phone, looking at the next thing to do. Like, oh, I got to do family stuff right now. Like, I'm busy. I want to go do something. Right. And, that was like true peace and happiness being on that boat. And I think that came from where the fall through God, through the journey to be in that place and find that ultimate happiness, because I know what it's like to have nothing and be at the absolute bottom.
For sure.
I'm sure you can
absolutely
align to that.
I don't think I would have looking back, I don't think I would have it any other way. Mm-hmm. It's sculpted me into who I am today, right? I go home and I see my city, man, and like you guys talk about Fort Pierce, like being right? My whole city's like that. We're talking 28 square miles of just ghetto, and it's sad watching that. And like, I'm so grateful that I was able to escape that situation. And my brother moved out of town. Like, they all live on the outskirts, but it's just, it's like when you come from that type of environment, it's like, it's the only thing you know how to do is survive, but I wouldn't have my life any other way, man. Growing up in that city, becoming the person I was, and then fixing the person to become who I am today, was the greatest achievement of my life, right? And I tell my fiance all the time, like, I could die tomorrow and I'm content. Mm-hmm. Like, I turned it around. I made my family proud, my hometown proud. I'm no longer the dirtbag that I was, and I help people, man. And I wish I could help people more. Like, my heart is just pouring out love. Like, I wish I watch these videos on the social medias and these guys giving away money, and I'm like, how do you even get there? You know, like I wish I could just go buy somebody a car that needed it, you know, like, because I think that's my calling, right? Eventually, like my goal is to get to a place where I can help people, just like a friend of mine who's going through a rough time right now helped me get to where I'm at. You know what I mean? And I'm forever grateful to that kid. I'm not going to mention his name, but he set me up and for success and showed me everything I shouldn't do, but everything I learned came from them too. You know what I mean? And I'm forever grateful for that. So you're blessed. I'm blessed. It doesn't get much better than what we got going on. You know what I mean? We always want more, but do we need it?
You know, when I was like on my knees begging for help for people, and now, you know, being able to be in the mindset and be that person that someone actually calls and is like, hey, Jordan, you know, I'm thinking this, or I'm going through this, you know, can you help me, or what are your thoughts? And, you know, to be that person is the most fulfillment inside of you, to be able to be helpful and to be that, rather than, again, I love to say, than going to chase that dollar. Being able to be that person for someone, especially who is there for you, I mean, that's a true gift from God. You know, it really is.
Yeah, I was at your wedding, man. That was a cool experience, right?
Yeah.
I don't think you imagined doing that 3 years ago.
That wasn't even in the cards. That thought wasn't even in my head.
I was the what do they call it? The paparazzi. I was sneaking around making videos. You guys didn't even know I was taking photos.
Yeah, I think I got some of that content. That was great. Yeah. You know, that experience, I didn't ever imagine, one, that I'd ever have a wedding like that, or for that to happen, or, you know, all the emotion that was in there. And, you know, with my son, I had how many conversations?
He needs to come on here.
Right. He's ready. Yeah. He's asked me multiple times. He's just, you know, shaking his legs on the bench, ready to be tapped in.
We need to put him in.
But I mean, the conversations that you and I had about, you know, through that process, because when I met you, I wasn't speaking to him. I was, you know, going through battles with his mom, and, you know, just to have him today, just came back from New York, you know, he's changed his profile picture on his phone to him in the Summit building. Yeah. And to have that experience with him, and now it meant so much to him that it's on his page, is like, is the best feeling in life.
Do you remember the first question I asked you when we first sat down?
Oh, I'm not a clue.
So you were like, oh, you know, I want to get my son back. And I was like, oh yeah, where you been the last 5 years? Right? And I said, Jordan, do you think you're a good father? And you were like, damn.
Right. That absolutely not.
Yeah,
you know,
answered that. And you answered that way. Right. And I think, like, and I was telling somebody last night, like, this is how I approach things with people. And like, I'm either real rugged with you and you don't like it.
Oh no, you're really rugged. There's if you were going to say something else, we're just going to end it there. And that's where it comes.
There's like no way around it. It's like, we're going to get down to the brass tacks of it and be like, you either like me or you don't. And like, that's fine.
And I do, now that you bring that up, I do remember the first thing you asked me, and you come in and it wasn't that. You asked me that shortly after, I'm sure. But it starts out with, how does it feel to be a 30-year-old piece of shit?
30-year-old loser.
Loser, that's what it is. And sorry, I don't curse. So, and I'm like, you know, but that's, you know, that's your process, and it works for people because it breaks you down. You stop and you're, you know, because, oh, you're this, you're that. No, bro, you are nothing right now. Yeah. You know, your life is in shambles. I don't want to hear. And it's funny because one time I was going to court, I was on video and Tiffany was seeing it. And again, I had no experience in the rooms, recovery, humbleness. I was still in a messed up jail mindset and not living correctly. And I go to the court, and I've been arrested 5 times, and, you know, I don't know, I'm in on double bonds. I can't, all the, you know, the worst, just ridiculousness ever. And I go before the judge, and I'm like, yeah, you know, I just can't wait to get out and start my real estate career and this. And I remember talking to her, and she's like, what are you even thinking? Like, you are so far from, like,
delusional.
You delusional, right? I mean, you're like holding a sign on the side of the road asking for $1 right now, and you're talking about, you know, like, that's the level where you're at.
Right.
And so, and it didn't hit me, and, you know, now I can sit in this chair, and I'm like, you know, and it really, to be that person to help people, to say, guys, you know, how does it feel to be a 30-year-old loser? that's
Yeah. And then you remember when I sparked the other attorney too?
oh, I mean, came through. Right. Yes, right. You were there the whole process.
She wasn't ready.
Yeah, right. You did an amazing job. You did an amazing job.
Even your attorney was like, you should have been a lawyer. That's what she said to me at your wedding. I was like, yeah, probably should have.
Well, get too deep in that, but Ken, came and had to, through my process of getting my son, he had to sit down and do like an hour-long deposition. And through that, I had to have, I don't even know, 10, 12 people do this. And he sat down and had to say all these pieces that I've done. And, he did an amazing job, as he likes to say, spark that other attorney, because it was a battle. I fought 2 years as a tough battle to get in this place that I am today.
It's great that where you started and where you are, and there's only more things to come.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the magic.
That is the magic of it. That, this is right, just to start.
I think I also told you when we first started, I said, I want you to think about 5 years from now. When you hit 5 years, I want you to look back.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to be like, wow. And we're not even at 5.
We're not at 5, no. Right. If you do the work, if you put in the process, and I feel like in the rooms in some of these other spaces, people want it, but they don't put in the work. And if you truly have to reach that bottom and say, whatever your bottom is, everyone's is different. Hit your knees and talk to God and find that power greater than you.
And all that's got to be applied in everyday life.
Absolutely.
Your business, your relationship, right? If you talk to Tiffany 1 hour a day and then you ignore her for the rest of the day, how's your relationship going to turn
out? Oh, 100%. Right. Right.
You talk to God 1 minute a day.
Right.
That relationship's not going to be strong.
There's going to be no fruit from it, right?
I got to pray about 80 times a day driving on these roads in St. Lucie County. Man. But hey, man, I'm glad that you and I are friends.
Amen.
I wish you would answer the phone a little more.
That was a blessing. I know. I hear you.
Because I love busting your chops. Mm-hmm. But
I appreciate it when you do.
Being able to sit here and do things with you like this, man, is a blessing. And it's an honor and a privilege, that to see you grow and you and Tiffany's love and family come together. That's awesome, man.
I appreciate you.
Tear it up.
I appreciate, man. I appreciate you being part of that journey, because I know where it came from. Yeah. You sit up here and you tell these stories and testimonials and stuff to try to help. You want to help. You want to know that this is achievable goal. But I mean, people who are really front row for that show, or that what you truly had to go through to get there and how hard it is, because everyone sees the end goal when you start getting success, or when you start getting out there doing well. No one truly knows, and you're that guy who truly knows. And man, I love you, bro. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I truly know it because I've been there. Mm-hmm. Started from the bottom, now we're here.
Yes, sir. So, bro, I love you. I appreciate you coming on here.
Absolutely. Anytime.
How can they find Cobblestone Pavers and Hardscapes?
We're on Facebook. It's www.facebook.com, Cobblestone Pavers and Hardscapes. Instagram is at Cobblestone_Pavers. TikTok is Cobblestone Pavers and Hardscapes. And then, of course, I have a website, www.cobblestonehardscapes.com. And then, and if anybody really needs to get a hold of me, it's 772-274-8395. And I'm glad to give anybody a consultation, at no fee whatsoever. Free consultations. We'll come out, we'll take a look. You're either going to like the price or you're not, but at the end of the day, we'll shake hands and become friends, and we'll go on our own way.
I mean, I think that's the purpose of what this podcast is. If people are looking to do business with people who are coming from a helpful mindset and, do what they say they're going to do, reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on Realty Trader Talk. If you like this podcast, please like or subscribe. I'm trying to get my subscribers up. We're trying to do things for the community. I appreciate you guys. Sponsored by RealtyTrader.com.